All right, let's dive into one of the biggest, most confusing questions in all of finance. Bitcoin. You've seen the price swings. They're absolutely legendary. But what if the whole idea of its value is, well, wrong? We're about to explore a wild paradox that sits at the very heart of Bitcoin's future.
So get this, we're going to unpack a pretty wild scenario today. It's one where Bitcoin becomes a massive success, like fundamentally changing the plumbing of finance. But that very success is what makes its own price just completely collapse. How on earth is that even possible? Well, it all starts with a very old, very classic idea. You've probably heard of this one, the greater fool theory. It's a really simple, but man, is it a powerful concept. The idea is you buy something not because you think it's actually worth that much, but because you're betting you can find someone else, a greater fool, who will buy it from you for even more. It's basically a high-stakes game of hot potato, but with billions of dollars on the line. And this isn't just some random theory. It tends to play out in a surprisingly predictable pattern. You know, it all starts with a spark of hype, which then builds momentum as more and more people pile in. Pretty soon, you've got a full-blown speculative frenzy. That greater fool effect keeps the party going until, eventually, the market just runs out of new fools. That's the exhaustion point, and what comes next is, you guessed it, the bust.
So here's the billion-dollar question, right? Does this classic bubble pattern actually apply to Bitcoin? I mean, is this revolutionary new technology just powering a very, very old game? Let's take a look.
What's so interesting here is you've got two different cycles happening at the same time. Over on the left, that's the standard technology adoption curve. Innovators, early adopters, you know the drill. But look at the right. You can see how a financial bubble can literally ride on top of it. The early believers get in, then the momentum chasers, until you get to the last buyers, the ones left holding the bag. It's a perfect picture of how speculation can get way ahead of actual real-world use.
And when you see prices hitting these just dizzying new heights, the question that's on everyone's mind is pretty simple. Where are we in this whole cycle right now?
Okay, so let's try to pinpoint where we are. When you look at things like the massive inflows from ETFs and the clear herd mentality in the market, it really does look like we've shot past simple growth and are now squarely in the bubble or euphoria stage. The greater fool dynamic? Yeah, it seems to be in full effect.
But hold on, I can hear you saying it, this time is different. And you know what? You might have a point. Wall Street is here, the giant institutions are finally in the game, but does that make them a force for stability, or are they just a much, much bigger fool?
Make no mistake, the arrival of institutional money has completely changed the game. We're talking about a steady, sustained fire hose of cash from ETFs, a powerful new digital gold story that's taking hold, and a regulated, grown-up market infrastructure. The buyer base isn't just individuals with FOMO anymore. It's the big leagues.
Which brings us to the absolute core of this whole thing. Does all this new, supposedly smart money make a huge, catastrophic crash more or less likely? And the answer, of course, is that it's a total double-edged sword. On one side, you could argue a crash is less likely. Institutions have longer time horizons, they provide deeper liquidity, that could stabilize things. But, and this is a huge but, they're absolutely not immune to FOMO. And if that digital gold story ever shatters, the risk of huge rapid ETF redemptions could trigger a crash that's faster and sharper than anything we've ever seen.
You know, all this talk about a crash, whether it's coming or not, it might be distracting us from the real revolution that's happening. What if the price is actually the least interesting thing about Bitcoin?
No, seriously, what if we're all just staring at the price ticker, completely obsessed, while the most important part of this whole story is unfolding somewhere else entirely?
Here's the core idea, the big twist. Bitcoin isn't just one thing anymore. It's splitting. It's evolving into two completely different things, right before our eyes.
So on one side, you have Bitcoin the asset. That's the one we all see on the news, the speculative, volatile digital gold that goes through these crazy bubble cycles. But on the other side, there's Bitcoin the rails. This is the behind-the-scenes stuff, a secure, global settlement network, a foundational layer, like plumbing, for tokenizing real-world things like gold bars or government bonds. That's the utility. And this is where it gets really wild. This dual identity leads to a truly mind-bending possibility, a paradox where Bitcoin's greatest success as infrastructure could be the very thing that kills its value as an asset.
So picture this, a world where the Bitcoin network is a huge success, settling trillions of dollars worth of tokenized gold and bonds every day. What happens to the actual Bitcoin tokens in that world?
Well, it's possible that the Bitcoins themselves just start to be seen as empty. So how could this actually play out? Think of it like a chain reaction. First, all these tokenized assets, gold, bonds, you name it, they start to thrive on the Bitcoin network. As that happens, the real economic value shifts away from the BTC token and onto the rails themselves. So then, speculative demand for Bitcoin just fades. I mean, why would you hold a volatile token when you could hold tokenized gold on the exact same network? And at that point, the greater fool music stops, the game is over, and the price collapses.
And that leaves us with this one final fascinating question. What happens when the world's most valuable financial infrastructure is powered by an asset that's become, essentially, worthless? It's a paradox that could truly change how we think about value itself.